Welcome back to the Dear Katie podcast. This is Katie Koestner. I am the primary host of the Dear Katie podcast, and we are so delighted to have you take this journey with us on our weekly podcast episodes. I just want to remind everyone to do great self-care. Thriving is part of the purpose of this podcast, and we definitely want you to take a break at any time. Warm bath, fresh air, walk a dog, have a bite of chocolate, whatever you need to do good care for yourself. Just as a reintroduction, if you're not familiar with me, I am the woman who was on the cover of Time magazine at age 18 as the first in history to speak out nationally and publicly as the victim of date rape. And HBO made a film about me, and I went on to become the executive director of the Take Back the Night Foundation. We are the oldest, largest global movement on sexual violence in all forms for all people in the world. So we encourage you to visit our website for lots more information. So I'm going to turn it over to our host and our guest for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dear Katie podcast. This, as you know, is Katie Koestner, and I'm so delighted to continue on this healing journey for our survivors and our supporters. It is so very important to take this entire journey one step at a time. And each and every one of my guests, I really hope will bring some new insight as you'll apply and learn from their own journey. And remember, trigger warnings everywhere. If something that we talk about is hard to hear or brings up a well of emotion, I always say just, you could lay on your flat back on the floor, go outside and breathe some fresh air, listen to some birds chirping, go find some spiders or worms, bake a cake, eat some chocolate chips, whatever makes your heart sing and gets you back in a centered spot. But I am so excited to have a really, I like covering all the different facets of how survivorship manifests itself. And today we have a great dad, a father of a survivor, and his name is Derrick. And Derrick's going to tell you more about himself, but I want to welcome everybody to learn about Derrick Hurley. Derrick is married to his wife. Her name is Jill, and he has 3 daughters, Caitlin, Taylor, and Emily, along with his granddaughter, who's Amelia. Derrick spent 37 years in the retail technology industry and held executive level roles over the last 15 years. Derrick loves to travel. He's a sports guy, especially college football. My husband should talk because he's a Georgia Bulldog. He might just have a few words to say. He has the entire team roster memorized and probably wish that he could help recruit. But I am wearing the Georgia Bulldogs on my own self every Saturday, every game day, I should say. So I bring good luck to his team. And the UFC. Derrick did leave his career early, and that is what we're going to talk about. He left early because in the sexual assault world, his oldest daughter, Caitlin, was assaulted not too long ago, but it was 2015. So 9 years ago, Caitlin, his oldest, was the victim of sexual assault. So Derrick, my goodness, I'm sure your journey has been arduous to say the least, but we cannot wait to learn more about you. So I think you live in Tennessee right now.
I live in Knoxville. And I just say I went to North Carolina. Yes, I went to North Carolina State University, but we've lived here since '96, and so there's an orange all around me. And so when you mentioned Georgia, the hair stood up on the back of my neck.
I know, and you're even wearing red. Nobody can see you, but you kind of have bulldog red on instead of orange.
Also NC State red, so
Okay, gotcha. Okay, you're wearing your home team. So what took you, did you grow up in North Carolina then?
I grew up in a very rural area of North Carolina called Mount Gilead, and it was about 2,000 people. So hence the accent that everybody's going to get to enjoy is very unique, but it's from that part of North Carolina.
Oh, that's nice. Is that on western side of the state?
It's actually, it's in a pocket. It's about an hour north of Charlotte, 2 hours south of Raleigh, and an hour east of Greensboro. So you've got a lot of the big cities around it, but you have to drive an hour to go to any of them. So
Gotcha. So smaller town, Mount Gilead. I've traveled so much myself, so I do know it. So you're growing up there, and then you go to NC State. Are you studying business or IT then?
I was a business major. I did take some IT classes, just as electives, basically, which I think paid off for me, just given how my career has progressed. But I was just a business major.
Okay. So you're doing that, and now where does Jill come in? Your wife?
Yeah, so she was 1 year behind me in school, and so
At the same school.
yeah, we were in and she's from Knoxville, so that's part of why we're back. Well, it's a big reason we're back here. But the reality is, she came in as a freshman. I was a sophomore, and it was a co-ed dorm, and I was, I met her, actually helped her move in, as I helped a lot of people. I helped a lot of people move in, but she just happened to be one of them, and
oh, nice.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went from there.
You carried her stuff, and then the rest is history. It's like, oh, you can lift heavy things. I'm all in.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went.
Yeah. So did y'all start dating right after that, like her freshman year?
Yeah, we actually started dating. I think here we were in school probably about the third week of August, but probably about a week or two after Labor Day. So that's pretty quick. We went.
Yeah, that's real quick. Yeah. Super fast.
It's been a while, because that was 1988. So,
well, what do you think? I'm just curious. Like, this is a sidetrack, but what do you think she liked about you back then?
Boy, that's
besides your heavy lifting ability.
That's a great question. I don't know that I ever asked her that, but I would just say,
ask her on your next anniversary.
I think it was probably just that I was a nice guy, and I don't know. I mean, I had a strange accent. Believe it or not, it's better than it used to be.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm was friends with a lot of people. I've got my personality is, I'm not afraid to go meet people and talk to people, and we're in the same dorm, so to be honest, me and my roommate that year, we were sophomores in a freshman dorm, and I hate to say, but we had parties up there most, the weekend. So a lot of people there knew us. But anyway, it's just kind of how it started, and
oh, nice.
Still going strong.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm just curious, did you play sports or do music or clubs in college?
In college, just intramural sports. I mean, I love sports. I played sports in high school, but but really not in college so much. Just intramural and just rec league type stuff. Yeah, gotcha. I love music, but I have no talents to offer from an instrument or singing perspective.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
Well, we will not hold that against you. But so you get married right after college? Or?
No, we dated for 5 years. We ended up, we ended up getting married. Well, I think I told you wrong. Jill graduated in '88. We met in '84, and we got married in 1989. So
okay,
yeah,
gotcha. So y'all are moving back to Knoxville, and you start a family, and you got into all these big companies. Did you work your way up like the old school kind of like crawl your way through the layers?
Well, what really happened is, while I was in college, I didn't have any money, and I needed to get a job, and we had a co-op program, and so I applied to maybe 3 businesses, and NCR, interviewed me, and they actually hired me in the co-op program, which was actually my junior year of college. So I worked 20 hours a week and went to school from then until I graduated, and they actually offered me a job before February, and I wasn't graduating until May. So it kind of made that easy, because I knew what I was doing. I was comfortable, and I just got to move into it. And then it took an interesting, the growth through that year. I mean, 37 years in that industry, I've seen a lot of things in technology change. Well,
actually, let me just ask you something sidebar, Derrick. I think it's really rare to talk to someone who's been in an industry for 37 years. And I think it's cool, because now you might have insight. And, I have a partner too, and he's been in the legal field for a long time. And he's like noticed what has changed. And, I'm curious, in your field, how has more on our issue, like this gender equity, sexual violence? Like, do you remember when you first had a training on stuff like this? Like even sexual harassment, you know what I mean? Like, can you remember back? Because it starts to think about like when we set a standard in a culture and an expectation, that's part of the solution is like, you can't get away with this behavior. And we're seeing it now every day, right? We have the P. Diddy case.
Oh yeah.
Like that was a whole culture. He had a culture of, hundreds of women and men and boys, like a cult. So I'm just wondering, within your industry, can you remember when there was a change in priorities? Like, you said you're a nice guy. So
what I can remember is the first company I worked for. So I worked for NCR and then several others through the 37 years.
Right.
The first time I remember anything, and it was sexual harassment. Some companies started doing sexual harassment training. I'm sure some big companies sued, and all of a sudden it's a thing. And I would say that was probably around 1990 or 1992, in that window of time.
Oh my goodness, that's like when I'm on the cover of Time. Everyone's like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. Well, maybe you did it, Katie.
Woman on the cover of Time, the original Me Too, and like, oh, what are we doing on this topic?
Yeah, and they started requiring you to do tests, online or some sort of tests or things like that. And it's really, since then, every company requires something, right? It's mostly just around sexual harassment.
Right. And I think, you go.
No, I was just going to say, it's a lot different than when you get into the assault stuff, though, really. I mean, it really is a major transition there.
I agree. It's one thing to use a word and make a gesture, and it's another thing to use a bodily harm approach. So now you and Jill are in Knoxville.
Correct.
You're still in corporate. You're doing great. What does your wife do, by the way?
Well, she started off teaching special ed, in back in Durham, North Carolina. We lived in Raleigh when I was working with NCR in the beginning. But then once we decided to have kids, I'll take one short tangent and say, in my job after NCR, it was they moved me to Ohio with NCR. Then I moved back to Raleigh at another company, and in 1993. They offered me a international assignment, and I'll tell you, Katie, I'd only been to Canada, and you didn't even need your passport at that point to go to Canada.
Oh, wow!
And so we sold our house. My oldest daughter, Caitlin, who we'll be talking about a little, was 6 months old, and we went sight unseen over there and took that assignment. And I just say it because it was pivotal in our lives, because we got to travel. I never really traveled. I think travel is a cure for ignorance, and I'm speaking about myself a little bit when I say that. But the reality is, you see how other people live. It's not just how people live here. And it was the best decision from a business perspective I ever took. Went very well. And then, of course, we moved back, and Jill obviously stopped working then, but she stopped working really when Caitlin was born. After the kids kind of got through. Well, actually, when our youngest started in preschool, she started teaching preschool, because then she could take the kid to the preschool and then do her job and then bring her home. Nice. And she still teaches preschool to this day. So she's excellent.
Awesome.
She's excellent.
Okay, so Jill's a preschool awesome mom / preschool teacher.
Yes.
And then you get out. You're the girl dad with 3 girls. Right?
That is correct. Just know I never had a sister growing up, so I was nervous when the first one came along.
Okay. Well, it seems like you did okay. So now you have these 3 girls, and Caitlin's the oldest. So how old is she currently?
She's 31.
She's 31. And how's your youngest? Is that Emily?
Emily, she's 25. 25. And then Taylor 25. Is in the middle and is 28.
Okay.
It doesn't seem right when I hear
it. Good job spacing them out.
It doesn't sound right when I say they're that old, so I start to question myself.
Oh my gosh. No, you guys started young and you stuck together, so it makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so now we roll through. So things are going pretty well. You're raising all your daughters, but now we're in 2015. So how does Caitlin's situation happen?
Okay, so Caitlin...
Actually, let's say, like, how did you hear about it first?
How did I hear about it? You have done well. I heard about it because Caitlin Skyped my wife Jill. She was overseas, so it was a little, it was a little different. But she Skyped and said, "Hey, can you talk and can you go into the bedroom?" Which was unusual. So they go back into our bedroom, which is adjoining our family room, which my other daughters and I were in, and pretty quickly I could hear Caitlin sobbing on the phone and kind of wondering what's going on, but. I mean, I thought, well, maybe she did bad on a test or something because, she's kind of like that. She takes it all difficult. But my other daughters, I could see the worry in their face. And I basically said, don't worry. If it's serious, Jill will come get me. And 30 seconds later, she came and got me and shut the door and said, immediately, she just said, Caitlin's been raped. And of course, the adrenaline and everything flowing through your body changes so quick. And I just said, who was it? I was just curious, did she know? You just never know. I had no idea. And it was a London Metro police officer that was on the island with his family for a friend's wedding. That's how it started.
Okay, wait. I think we need to make sure I got this clearly. So we have Caitlin's 22 correct. When she calls Skype?
Yeah, she's 22 when it happened. That's correct.
Okay, so she's 22, and where is she physically at that moment when she does the Skype?
She is in Antigua, which is in the Eastern Caribbean. So she was in nursing school there.
So she's in nursing school in Antigua, and she Skypes with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And now you lost me on the London police officer.
Yeah,
person.
Well, he's the perpetrator. He's the perpetrator.
Okay. Okay, wait. So your daughter is in Antigua in nursing school.
Correct.
She notifies your wife, and you two are now in the bedroom, which I'm sure is traumatic in and of itself. Before we get back to the details, I'm sure that is an indelible imprint in your head, that whole moment.
Oh, yeah.
Probably hard to shake. How did you feel? I mean, you're thousands of miles away and your daughter is helpless.
It is really, it makes you feel a bit helpless, right? Because I can't just jump in and help her. And of course she's not, when Jill gets me, Caitlin, they had hung up from Skype because Jill wanted to tell me first and and Caitlin was going to call back 5 minutes later, which was actually a very good strategy because at first, of course I'm furious, I'm mad. I'm like, it's just instinctive to protect, and you can't do it. So it was, but what I remember the most, other than the shock, was just the adrenaline running through my body was unlike anything I had really felt until the end of this thing, which we'll get to that. But it was because and then I needed that minute or two before she called.
Wait, was the adrenaline, like, would you classify it as rage, anger, sadness, like injustice?
Yeah, I mean, I would think two things come to mind, and there's probably a bit of just rage, anger, and then the other would be a little bit of fear. I'm worried about her. I'm worried for her. And
did you feel like punching? I mean, everybody's different. Like, did you feel like slamming the wall? Did you feel like
I didn't
screaming out loud?
I felt like slamming him into the wall, but I didn't. But really, I mean, you're just angry that it happened. I was more angry that he was a police officer doing it.
Okay, wait. You didn't know. Wait, let's get back to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
By the time, I think some of this is really important, Derrick.
Okay.
Like, the word choice your daughter used with your mom, was it, "Mom, I was just raped by a police officer," or "Mom, something bad happened, it was sexual"? Like, do you remember or know what she said?
She told Jill, she basically said, it's kind of strange to me, but she basically said, "Mom, I think I've been raped." Now she was drugged, so there's a bit of the story behind it as to probably why those were the words she chose, but she did know because he had admitted it via text. And so she knew. I think she was just softening the blow a little bit, maybe. I don't know, easing into the conversation. But that's basically how she told her, pretty quickly. I mean, Jill's very smart. She knew right off that this is what had happened.
Hi, this is Katie Koestner, and I wanted to remind all of our listeners about the free National Sexual Assault Legal Hotline. We at Take Back the Night have assembled an incredible team of attorneys, trauma-informed, who truly believe survivors and want to support their journeys in healing and finding justice. The Get Justice Hotline is 567-SHATTER, or feel free to fill out a form on the Take Back the Night website, share your story, let the attorneys know what's going on, and they will get back to you as soon as possible with all of your legal options. That is a service we are delighted to provide through Take Back the Night. Okay, so then Jill nutshells it to you, and then you call her back.
Yeah, and this is the sad part to me, Katie. Before she actually called us back, and before she did, she texted me and basically said she basically was apologizing for doing everything wrong, because we had taught her and all of our daughters about leaving your drinks alone, about taking people into your house or going into someone's house that you don't know well. And obviously he was visiting the island, didn't know him well. And the first thing I told her was, it's not your fault. And I said, why? And so I just asked her, why do you think you did those things? Because she obviously knew. She said, well, he was a police officer and I thought I could trust him. And so, that's kind of how that went. But I didn't want her to feel guilty. She didn't do anything, and I know this happens. This is not uncommon. And I just wanted to take that off of her.
Oh, that is brilliant, Derrick. That's exactly what you need to say. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. I mean, I hope every father out there hears exactly your words, because it's easy to be really scared that your parents are going to say you defied everything I taught you. And my goodness, you said the totally right thing. Do you know that you did?
Well, at the time, it was just what was kind of, I'll say, instinctive. But I will say this. I thought we were more educated on the topic. After that happens, when something happens to you, your family, or someone close to you, that's actually when you go get educated on it. And I realized how ignorant we were just in general of how bad the problem was and these types of things. But I mean, that's just what I felt like needed to be said. I certainly hadn't had any trauma informed training or anything at that point. Nothing like this has ever happened. But my whole thing was to make her as comfortable as I could. I knew she was in for a tough road ahead.
Well, you totally did the right thing, Derrick, and I'm really proud of you. And I think maybe we don't have to go through the entire process, but I think your reactions are really helpful, because so many of our listeners have not had a dad like you or a person like you to validate and tell them right away it's not your fault. And even if I say to our listeners, even if the person in your life wasn't Derrick, he's speaking what should have been said to anybody. And while this is a police officer and all the decisions are logical, sometimes even when it's not a police officer, even when someone gives us a compliment, we can feel like, oh, I really appreciate the compliment, and you instantly become more trusting and vulnerable. So thanks, Derrick. So now we have the situation. What happens next? What does Caitlin say should happen next?
Well, what we did next was told her to go to the hospital and get a rape exam and call the police. That was the next thing. And that was probably at 10 o'clock at night. So Antigua is 14 miles north and south and 11 miles east to west. So it's not a big island, but so she's down on the southern part, but she had to drive up to the northern part. But so we knew it'd take a little bit, but she said, okay, I'll go now. I'll call you when I get back. And I think the next couple of things that happened there for her are really important to state, because anyway. So she drove, she called the police, she drove there. The senior detective, the leader of their sexual assault division, Detective Hope, and he was older than I am. I'll just say it that way. Met her there and asked her to come back in a room, listen to Caitlin's story, and then said, "Well, you can't do your exam at this hospital." Now think about that for a minute. How horrible that is, because it's hard to get people to go do a rape exam most of the time. And here she is wanting to get one. But and here's why. He said you need to go to the medical clinic. While there's only one hospital, there's probably another 6 medical clinics around the island in kind of, geographically coordinated areas to population. And he told her to go to Liberta, which was near where she lived. That's what they want people to do. And Caitlin said, "I can't go there. I'm a nursing student and I work there. So I'm just not going to go there for this. And also it's closed, by the way." So he said, and so that's how that conversation went. And he told her he would work out something for her and he would get back to her, and call her back and let her know what he could do. So, as you know, Katie, you don't turn people away from getting a rape exam and all this. And when she got back and told us that, I was probably as mad then as I was when she first told me, because I'm thinking, she needs help. She needs support. She doesn't need to be turned away from getting an exam that's going to be a rough exam. While she was in that transportation to the hospital and back, we booked Jill a flight to Antigua. This was a Wednesday night, and it's not easy to get there from Knoxville, Tennessee. It's easier now than it was in 2015, but anyway, Jill flew down. She got there Saturday. That was the best we could get her there. And that's kind of what happened next, because at that point we're waiting. And I'll tell you, when Jill arrived, she still had not heard back from the police from Wednesday night. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you the next little bit, because this is equally as important. So Jill gets there. They have not heard back. They make a plan on Sunday of what they're going to do for the week. Jill's going to help her through everything. And so Monday morning, the first thing they did was call the Detective Hope back to try to, we need to do this exam. Caitlin's starting to have some vaginal pain. She's gotten bruising now that have shown up. So, and she's starting to get painful. So, they're trying to move this along. I mean, it's been 5 days. And they get his voicemail. So, leave a message. The next thing they did was call the consulate. Now, the embassy for the U.S. in the Eastern Caribbean is in Barbados. So, there's a consulate in the other island. So, Jill calls the consulate and says, "Here's who I am. My daughter's at the Macedonia School of Nursing. Here's what happened. Can you give us some advice?" I mean, we don't know, right? We've never been through this. 2, we don't live there, and so we just trying to get some advice from somebody that might can point us in a direction. And the consulate told Jill, "The only advice I can give you is to not call the embassy," which is confusing, right? And Jill, I think, questioned, "Wait a minute, not call the embassy?" And she said, "Yeah, do not call the embassy, because they will just come in here and run roughshod over the local police, and they'll get mad, and then they're not going to help you." I just say that because that was her Monday, and I'm not done with the Monday yet, but this was one of the most pivotal days. I will say it was good advice. And I can tell you the rest of that at the end, because the rest of it comes to at the end. But this is
no, keep going.
This is how their day started. They get after that, the detective does call back and says, "Can you meet us at the local police station?" And it's probably 2 miles from where Caitlin's apartment was. So they go. The same gentleman that listened to her story the first night at the hospital. First thing he wants to do is hear the story again. And as we all know, you don't want them to keep reliving this thing. But that's what happened next. And then my wife, Jill, is very non-confrontational. I thought that was going to be helpful to have her down there, one, to support her daughter. There's some lady stuff going on in the conversations. It's probably just better for her to be there. She's a very comforting person anyway. But I will say, she was getting frustrated. It's been 5 days. She went to the hospital and reported it. And now we're telling the story again. And finally, Jill said, look, my daughter has been drugged and raped. We need to get on this and start doing something. Here was the response. Nothing's going to come of this. Antigua doesn't extradite. Now, maybe that's true, but you don't say it when you haven't even started an investigation, you know? So this is how that day went. And I'm just going to tell you that every day while Jill was there, she called me at least once, most days twice a day, to update me. And that day was rough. So she calls me at night and says, I said, how was the day? Tell me about it. She said, well, it was a pretty bad day. And she told me what I just told you. And I'm really upset about the extradition. And then I'm upset about the consulate thing, even though it ended up being good. Just getting all that in one download, and I'm, hundreds of miles away, was tough. I was very upset, furious. And I will say, when I got off the call, and I think I left the call and I just basically said, Jill, we'll see about all that, because I just couldn't talk really. I didn't want to. There's nothing I could do right then. That was what happened that day. Mostly, I guess, got off the phone. Although I will say he did set up the rape exam for the next day. So anyway,
okay, wait, Derrick, let's take a moment for a moment. I have two really different three thoughts come to mind as I'm listening to you. I'm listening so clearly to your frustration that is still, this is 9 years ago and it's still fresh. So let's, it's been a while. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a few things.
Sure.
One, you're managing both Jill, all three. You're managing your response. You're also clearly listening to Jill's response.
Mm-hmm.
And also your daughter, Caitlin's response.
Right.
And then the process, you're analyzing the process. So you're trying to negotiate three sets of emotions, yours, your daughter's, and your wife, as well as this complete international failure of justice. But, you are so well to say you don't learn about stuff until you go through it, and then you studied it.
Yeah.
And the lack of justice you're describing in Antigua is still something that not only happens all over the world, but even in the U.S. So I just wanted to summarize that for our listeners, so they understand what you're going through, because you were trying to do all those things with no expert training at all. Just your love and compassion for your family and trying to do the best things you could. And I think if we sit with just that, that's part of this. And it's different from death and dying. When someone gets killed in a car accident and you don't know, you didn't even get to say goodbye, and then you're dealing with the trauma of that, and maybe it was an unjust way they died, and the drunk driver or the careless driver or the texting driver wasn't held accountable. There's so many times in our lives, all the time, when injustice happens. But combined with such intimate emotions like love and our intimacy itself, sexuality, it's really deep, you know? And it sounds like, you were doing it so well. Did your brain ever go bounce around? I'm almost envisioning you, your brain must have bounced because you're so business minded, and you're like, okay, what's the protocol? What's the process? Oh my God, Jill. Oh my God, Caitlin. Oh my God, me. How did you navigate that, if you remember now?
I remember it
you know what I mean? I asked a big question, Derrick.
No, I completely.
You're a good business thinker, and this is, putting a spin on it.
I remember it like it was yesterday. So I can tell you, I had this call back in our bedroom when Jill called me, and it just was back there talking to her. As soon as I got off, first of all, I will say I had probably a good 10-minute breakdown.
What does the breakdown look for you? Sorry, Derrick.
No, it's not a pretty picture. Well,
Conversation is
really
so helpful. You're so amazing. Don't even give up on me.
No, it was.
Don't give up on this conversation. It's hard, and I'm bringing you back to a lot of pain.
It was an emotional. Sorry. It's completely fine. I'm fine to talk about it. I mean, you
didn't have sisters. Did you have any brothers?
I have one brother. He's older than I.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just needed a release, you know. It was just overwhelming.
Did you just cry and cry?
Oh yeah.
Did you get a sick stomach? Did you want to throw up?
I was just really the tears wouldn't stop there for a good 10 minutes. I was just worried about Caitlin. Honestly, I was mad because of what I learned, and then I'm just wondering because that nothing's going to come of it statement.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to Caitlin? That was the trigger, I think. For all of.
Were you worried about her pregnant or her STDs or her?
I was just worried about her future. You know, she was.
What do you mean future? What do you mean?
So she happened to be at that particular school, which, by the way, not a real nice, fancy school in the Caribbean. It's very rustic because she wanted to be a travel nurse and a missionary nurse, and this is the one school we found that had a U.S. accredited program, so she could always take the NCLEX here and come back and nurse here if at some point she didn't want to do the travel nursing. That's why she was there. Well, that and the fact that we thought.
Derrick, now I'm thinking you inspired her into her profession, which is extra hard. You traveled the world.
Yeah.
No wonder she wanted to be a missionary and travel nurse.
Well, you know, you're
like, I love my dad.
Well, she and I went on her senior class of high school. She went to a Christian school, and we went on a mission trip, and I was invited to go as well. And I think it was a big game changer for her. And she was already planning to be a nurse. And then she said, I want to put my nursing skill to this. That's kind of how that all came about.
My God, that's glorious.
And she just was persistent that this is what I'm going to do. And so hey, we'll do what we can to help you. And Jill actually
gosh, that's so generous of you too, Derrick.
Well, in the end, Jill found the school, and because I was worried about, is Caitlin going to be okay? It's one thing to go on vacation to an island. It's another thing to live where there's poverty. And I thought Caitlin might need to make sure the fact that we could get her a nursing degree and let her live somewhere that's going to have power issues, water issues, storms. Yeah, exactly. And so we thought this would be good if she can live in that environment and thrive with that. Then I'll feel comfortable with her flying to Africa or South America or somewhere to do this nursing. That was our part of it, right? That's why she was there. Now, if you don't mind, or if you have a question, that's fine. But I kind of want to. You asked me kind of what's the thinking process. I want to jump back to answering that.
Yeah. So I think you're willing to do that, Derrick. That's fantastic.
Yeah. After my little breakdown, I just needed that actually. But I basically just kind of snapped out of it. And I'll just say, and I'm not going to say it all, but I just said F it out loud by myself.
I like it.
And I said, I'm going to have to
drive your own self-rally.
Yeah, I said, I'm going to have to drive this myself. And by this time, it was, probably 10:30 at night, and I hadn't been sleeping maybe 2 hours a night anyway. So I just, went into my office, got on my laptop, and started researching. So, and I will tell you, during that 10 minutes, I can't tell you how hopeless.
It's okay.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean. I don't think I've ever really been in that mental state, but I shook it off. I went on. It does bring it back. It's okay.
Let me ask. I want to go back to just sitting with you. Need to help other people, Derrick. Mm-hmm. That's why you're on the podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I think it's really important how you went from that hopeless to I'm going to get a Can you remember what snapped you into action back to, I'm going to figure this out?
Yeah, I'm. So
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
How did you get there? That's like a major thing. Some people stay and I can't, and I'm hopeless.
What really came to mind, because all this is flooding through my mind, and the extradition thing was really critical. And so I'm like, it's not, it just in my mind as this is happening, I'm thinking, it's not going to go away. It's not going to fix itself. You got to get on it. And then it just changed my whole demeanor at that point that night. It was almost like turning a faucet off, because it's just, I felt like I can go do some research, which this becomes the next one of the most important things I did, because between, probably 11 and 2:30 in the morning, I'm researching a lot of things. And I found that there is a treaty between the UK and a lot of the Eastern Caribbean islands, including Antigua. So,
nice.
Okay, they've not done it, but they have the means to do it. And so I read that 3 times to make sure I fully understood it. And then I searched.
I love it. Hi, everybody. It's Katie Koestner. Just a quick interruption. We want you to know that there is an entire shop full of cool merch on the Take Back the Night website to support your own healing journey, that of someone you care about. There are t-shirts, there's bracelets, there's glow-in-the-dark stuff. There's all kinds of unique special edition from our artist series as well. So please take a look. If it's a holiday or a special occasion or just a gift to yourself, support Take Back the Night through your purchase.
Then I searched.
I love it, Derrick. You're so. This is perfect.
Well, I mean, it's just what came to mind to go do, because I just couldn't accept it. So I had to go validate. Well, what I found was there was a way. And then I found the Sexual Offenses Act of 1995 in Antigua, found the relevant piece of that applied to Caitlin's case and the crime that had been committed. And I cross-referenced. I said, okay. So I said, basically, they haven't done it, but they absolutely can do it.
Nice.
So I waited a few days, because this was still very early days and they needed to investigate. I didn't want to press too much too soon, because they were starting to investigate. But what I will tell you, to fast forward that piece, about 2 weeks later, I called Corporal Forbes. Now, fortunately, Corporal Forbes took over the case, and he was in his 30s, and he was a breath of fresh air, just an outstanding man. And he's not had any trauma-informed training, but I will tell you what, made all the difference to Caitlin. You could tell he cared. He was encouraging. He checked on her for several months occasionally. Hey, I just want to see, are you okay? You feeling safe? He did all of that. And that really helped Caitlin, I think, get her through the hump. I did have to move her apartment as soon as she could find something within the first month. She moved apartments, got a roommate.
Wait. You know what we didn't talk about?
I'm sorry.
Derrick?
Go ahead.
That you just made me realize. Did this happen in her apartment?
It did.
That part we missed.
Yeah. So
tell me how he.
Yeah.
How did she meet him, and how did it wind up in her apartment?
So what happened?
Are you okay with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So
are they at a party?
They met online, and this happened. Somebody from the U.S. on that island. A lot of times when people from the U.S. or Canada or the U.K. came in, they're looking for somebody that's been there, lives there, to tell them other things to do. That happened more than once, but that's how they met. And then
like through Instagram.
It was actually on Tinder. So this was a question I asked for Caitlin. I said, Caitlin, why are you on Tinder? And she says, I know. That's how she started. I know. But in Antigua, they use it like they use the other stuff. So people are constantly on it. And I said, okay. And anyway, they started texting, shared pictures. Of course, he's sharing them in his police uniform, playing soccer with children. Of course, everything to gain trust.
My God.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
No.
But now the text messages became critical in this, but Caitlin, I think at least 3, if not 4 times in the text messages said, look, because they decided they would go out to a boat show. Antigua's a big boating island, and
right.
And so, but she told him, do not have any expectation of sex. That's not even in consideration. Just to be clear, And she did that for about 3 days in a row before they went out. And he acknowledged it and said, yeah, I understand, no problem. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they go to the boat show, and it is quite nice down on English Harbor there. And then her apartment's literally 2 miles away, and things are over and things aren't open. They don't have a lot of the night things necessarily like you would here. And so Caitlin's apartment had a great, her patio overlooked the harbor, and it was a phenomenal view. So they said they'd just go back, sit on the patio and just chat for a while, whatever. So they got back, they poured a glass of wine, went out and just talked, talked about each other's lives, got to know each other. And then the mosquitoes started biting, and I've been out there and that's happened, and it's blue.
Oh my God. You don't want to, I hate mosquitoes so badly.
So they quickly bailed on the patio and decided they would just watch a movie. So as they go in, Caitlin basically says, look, she's in a nice dress. It's not the most comfortable. And she said she's going to go change clothes. She goes back and puts on long sweatpants and a long sweatshirt, just to be clear about the attire. But when she came back, she took a sip of her wine and said, that doesn't taste right. Now he said, yeah, I put some vodka that was in your freezer in it. We do that in the UK all the time, which they do not. And so she gave it one more sip just to give it another try and said, no, that's something's not right. And 10 minutes later, she was getting dizzy, and her next memory was the next morning when she woke up. Well, she had two, I'll say, flash memories, and both were pain-induced memories.
Oh, no.
I'll leave it at one of them somehow fell off the bed, but hit her head really hard, but then she was back out. I mean, and the other, she was feeling personal pain, as you know, and she did come out of that and just said stop. But that's all her memory. That's the only memory she had of this.
You know what? I just want to take a minute again.
Sure.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
I'm so. Oh my gosh, you're my hero. Just having this very hard conversation, and you and I have never met, and I feel like you're being so generous, not just to me, but to our listeners and the world with your story. And I'm just want you to sit with that for a second. And I'm literally, Derrick, every time you talk, I'm being your daughter and, hearing my dad and how awful, and I want to throw up just when she must have told, I don't know if you read this in a report, or she's like, but Dad, I just sat on the couch and then the mosquitoes, I don't know if she told you all those details.
Yeah, she told me directly.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful that she felt comfortable trying to explain. And I don't know if it felt good for her just to share the story with you. And if you could listen with no judgment and just hear her. And if you wanted to interrupt or be like, can you tell me why? A lot of men, I feel like, want to understand the explanation, and sometimes there's not a good one. You know what I mean? If you allowed her, because you're a businessman and you're not a lawyer exactly, but most men are wired to get to the bottom of it and understand the facts. And if you were the one who could just kind of listen to her tell all these details and nod your head and say, you would be magnificent, Derrick, despite your lack of training. But if that's what you were able to, it sounds to me, based on everything you've told me, that you were exactly the kind of guy, I'll say despite the fact that you're 58 or 59, I'll say despite, because you're a rare breed, because, I'm hopeful for other generations, but you are of an older generation, even myself. And men were not taught to do anything other than solve problems. They weren't taught to be good listeners. They weren't taught to acknowledge pain and understand trauma. And oh my gosh, Derrick, you're a unicorn.
Okay. Well,
I just want to I'm praising you because
I appreciate it.
Your daughter, maybe no one ever told you this, but I am been at this 33 years, and you are a unicorn if you just sit and acknowledge instead of judge and question.
Well,
and you were willing to let her share the details at her pace and cadence rather than at your need for understanding. When you allow a victim to share the details of their trauma at their own cadence, instead of your need to solve the problem cadence, you're putting power back in the hands of the survivor.
Right.
If that makes sense. That's very nuanced, but I hope you heard me, because that's like what you did sounds like the fact that she told you instead of you read in a police report, meant that she was willing to trust you to be patient with her unraveling of what she was probably barely able to understand herself.
Yeah.
Sorry. Can you take a breath?
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Well, no, it makes perfect sense. And I will tell you, I am a problem.
But maybe nobody ever told you that exactly.
No.
But I'm telling you it right now.
Well,
I'm telling you exactly right now. And I hope if I'm the first to tell you, it means more so you further heal yourself.
What I would just say quickly on that is, I'm a compassionate person. It's my daughter. I'm going to be super compassionate. But here's the thing: I am a problem solver, and what I thought about this was, first I wanted to tell it. I don't want to interrupt because I know it's hard enough to tell it. I knew that, but I also thought I need to listen because I got to go work this thing one way or the other, and I need to understand what happened, and I won't get it if I let these vengeful thoughts or anything else distract me. So I just let her tell it, and then went from there. And
that's brilliant, Derrick. It's brilliant. But I think you didn't know it, but you had investigative and psychological tendencies somewhere along your training.
Yeah. It's well.
No, it's so amazing.
This story, Katie, is so crazy. This is just the tip of it. Is the thing. It's just the.
I know, and I feel like this is a whole book.
It is a book, and I wrote a book on it.
Are you gonna make it into? Maybe you should make it into a movie.
Well, if I knew who to contact, I will tell you this.
I know some people. We can talk offline.
Yeah, that would be good. I always say that.
If you already wrote it into a book, we'll talk after the show.
Well, yeah, you go ahead.
No, let's do this next then. We try to. We're at about 50 minutes already, but let's do this. So let's do where to from here.
Okay.
So she's disclosed everything. It's 9 years ago. What came of, we didn't get a rape kit because she was working at the hospital and they told her to defer. What happened with, any sort of justice at all, if any?
Yeah. So just so she did the rape kit after and that was an important piece of evidence, not because they could get any drugs, so far after. But
you didn't test her the drugs?
But it was, date rape drugs don't stay in your system long.
And
it just would have been no chance. But the reality is that all that pain I was talking about, Caitlin had a lot of damage and it was infected, which brings up another, the medical examiner was actually upset that she didn't get help before, and she was mad that they didn't get help that night she came, because she says, we could have saved you all that pain. But nevertheless, I'll give you the short version, and then you can ask questions. All right. So what happened from there? I'll just say I called 2 weeks later, and then this will set the trail for the short version. Corporal Forbes, and said, where are we with the investigation? This is about 2 weeks in. And because I thought they were done. And he said, well, I've turned it all over to Commissioner Robinson, so you probably should call him. He gave me his number. I just want to say Commissioner Robinson was awesome. He was compassionate. He was thoughtful. I mean, I just can't say enough about how he helped me and guided me through at times through this to navigate something I never thought I'd have to navigate. But anyway, I talked to Commissioner Robinson. First time I talked to him, and I said, introduced myself. Obviously, he's aware of the case. And I said, well, what do you intend to do? And I said, look, Before you answer that, let me tell you, I know there's an extradition treaty, and I know there are laws, and you've got a treaty in place. If not now, why do you even have it? And so he did not disagree, and he said, look, I've got all the evidence but the medical report. And he said, but I will tell you that I had a female police officer in the exam room when your daughter got her exam. And she has told me that she's 99% sure Caitlin was raped, and she would only say 100% if she actually saw it happen. That's pretty convincing. But he wanted to wait for the report. But he told me at that point, if the medical report kind of validates this, I will go to the attorney general and to the public prosecutor and recommend that we extradite, which that's what happened. We went forward with that. Now, I'll do this in the very short version given the time, but they had never extradited. By the way, other than Caribbean island to Caribbean island, which they do a little different there, nobody in the Eastern Caribbean had never extradited. So this ended up being pretty historic. So they submit the paperwork, and I will just say, and it was frustrating for me because I became her advocate after about a week and a half. She had to write letters to the police and in the UK and to the government. I hadn't even told you about how I got tied to the UK, but that's fine. There's their police officer. And I became the advocate. So everything went through me. And I mean, this was a second job for 9 months and then a part-time job for the rest of the time. So what happened was they submitted it. They had errors multiple times because they'd never done it. I don't blame them for it, but it just drug it all out. The first time that they accepted it in the UK, they do multiple hearings. I actually flew over. I worked for a UK company, by the way, at the time, where it kind of worked in my favor because I did have to go over a few times a year, and I just tagged things onto it. I sat in one of the hearings for the extradition, mainly because they have to tell the defense that the victim's father's there, and I wanted them to know I was there and that I wasn't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it was almost just one of those things. We got denied. I remember this well. We got denied the first extradition request because of the inhumane prison system. Now, I'll just say this. They call it Her Majesty's Prison in Antigua, and the nickname is 1735, which was the year it was built. There's no running water and no electricity in that prison, and it's overcrowded. So that was my worry on the extradition, and it did get denied from it. However, you have 3 years to reapply for extradition. So all that had to happen, make it sound simple, was Antigua had to come up with an alternative prison. So I immediately, the UK police informs me, they sit in the extradition, they sit in it, find out, reach out to me. I immediately call, I told the Antigua police, I think this before they knew about it, because I have both sides and I'm kind of in the middle for a lot of it. It was kind of strange, but it was good because I was informed. And I asked them what they would do, and both Commissioner Robinson and Attorney General Benjamin in Antigua both told me independently they have two alternatives. So I felt better about it, right, that it could happen. And they told me it was going to happen, but I wasn't real confident because it took a long time. There's a lot in between this, but to fast forward it, it was dragging on. People were getting upset because I was getting a little bit too. It really wasn't my fault. I was just doing what they asked me to do. But I'm persistent. That's the only way I can move this and keep it alive. It would have died had I not been persistent. I'm sure of it. They told me that, by the way. So at the end, I go to Commissioner Robinson and saying, "Look, this prison thing. We've been going around this for like a year. What are we doing? What can I do?" And he said, I can hear it. It's clear as day. He says, "Mr. Hurley, I think you've done about all you can do on this. Now it's time to call the embassy to let them push it over the line." So I hang up. I call the embassy, leave my name and number. They call me back in about 30 minutes. I tell them a summary. They want me to document it. I do that immediately, send it to them within the hour. The next day, the senior field officer out of the embassy calls me and said, "Hey, I've got all the information and I want to talk to you about it. But before we do," and I just want to tell you this just shows you why that consulate told me, it ties back to the consulate said, "Don't call the embassy." He said, I need you to tell me. It sounded like I was in trouble the way it was coming across. Like, I need you to tell me. I'm like, what have I done? He
Yeah,
says,
my gosh.
yeah, he says, I need you to tell me how you got the case this far without us knowing about it. We can't get cases this far.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for continuing to take the journey on the Dear Survivor podcast. A quick note, we are 100% volunteer at the podcast and at Take Back the Night. Your donations, your generosity helps us do what we do on such a shoestring budget. And we would be so grateful if this show is helping you through your journey and you are passing it along to others you care about. Please visit the Take Back the Night website and donate and support our cause and our mission to end sexual violence and support survivors. Thank you.
I was almost didn't know what to say, but I said, Mr. Bent, who, by the way, is a great guy. He is a great guy, but I didn't know him at this point. And I said, look, no disrespect, but I was told not to call the embassy. And I'm only calling now because I've done all I know how to do, and I was advised to call. So, we can talk about the other if you want, but reality is I need your help now. So from there, right after that, he got all the information from Antigua and everything. They had a storm through there, so it wasted about a week. But he engaged a lady, and this kind of, I'm near the end of it for this. So, named Sarah Abraham, who was she's from the UK. She was in their embassy, and she's the criminal advisor for the Eastern Caribbean for the UK. She jumped in and negotiated the prison stuff and the extradition stuff, and actually walked into a parliament meeting in Antigua, stopped the meeting to get the prime minister of Antigua to sign off on the extradition treaty, the extradition agreement. And then once that was done, and 2 days later, it was back over there, and it was done. In September 26th of 2018, the guy was, Lee Martin Cramp was his name, was brought to Antigua and to stand trial.
Wow.
And 9 months later, 4 years, Katie, 4 years to the date of the crime, he was convicted. It only took 2 hours and 15 minutes. Caitlin was phenomenal. On the stand, she was she just held it together better than I probably could have, to be honest, because the defense attorney it was like being in the 50s here, as you can imagine, is how it was. Anyway, so we got him convicted. He got they don't do the sentencing there. We all got to do impact statements and all that. The prosecutor was just awesome. We had an excellent judge. So we were lucky when I look back at all the people put in our path, because the commissioner of police was just incredible. The UK police were awesome. The judge was good. The prosecutor. I want to just say this. I told you I got educated on this. Jill and I mean, we watched documentaries. I could tell you at the time, everything on RAIN's website was statistical. By the way, in 2015, 0.6% is how many people went to prison for rape in the U.S. And so through this whole thing, if you want to know about what my mindset was, everybody, and I mean everybody, including Jill, nobody thought we would get him put in jail. Nobody. Everybody said, well, you might can do something civilly or you can get him fired. But nobody, even from my first call to a friend of mine in the UK, told me the same thing. But, I've seen the evidence. I knew what happened. If we can just get him to trial, we're going to win. And, well, we did. So.
Derrick, wait. I know.
Go ahead.
Let's give another pause. That was a ton.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, my gosh. That was so. Yeah, let's just take another moment. If you don't mind.
No.
I always, I don't want to interrupt because you're doing so amazingly well. And, I just, want to give you a breather too. A big in, a big clap. If you can imagine you standing on a stage right now, just for a second, imagine you being on a stage saying what you just did and all the hard work and where you got to, and you imagine thunderous applause and hands clasped together in hearts for you and your family and for Caitlin. I just want you to kind of visualize that because you deserve it. And while you're not on a stage tonight doing this, you're definitely talking to me who stood my largest audience was 250,000, Derrick. So I know what it's like to feel worried about how your reception and then knowing that you did the right thing. So I wanted to go back to a couple other things. You said Caitlin. I don't know that I could quote you exactly, but I loved it. You said Caitlin was magnificent on the stand. I think, I don't know if the word you chose was magnificent.
I think maybe excellent, but it was all, either one of them would apply.
It was like, so I think that's important because I'm choosing things to carve out of all the beautiful things you say, just based on, my bandwidth of interviewing so many people and also thinking about our listenership. And it's lovely and so heartwarming to have you give that applause to your own daughter and saying how courageous she was on the stand. Mm-hmm. Because if there's a moment of one of the harder things for survivors, victims to do is sit under the microscope and judgment of a jury or a judge and try to defend their very truth. And somehow Caitlin was able to do that. So I really think our listeners would benefit. Did you prep her? Did you go through questions with her? Did someone tell me more about how she created that stamina and fortitude and ability to be that person on the stand?
That's a good question, and I haven't really thought about it as much, but she was determined. As I told you a minute ago, no one thought we would win but me. I say me, it was me and Caitlin really was hanging on to me and my determination and just like I was going to will it to happen, and you can't. But she also knew the evidence, and if we could get there, she thought we could win. But when we got to that, I asked her, "Do you want us to go through?" She says, "No, I'm just going to tell the story. I can tell the truth. I'm fine." And I want to just say this: because I want to paint this picture a little bit. When we're in that court, my whole family.
The court, just to remind our listeners, the court is where?
It's in St. John's in Antigua.
Mm-hmm.
So we're there, and we're on the right side of where you sit behind the.
Is it one of those old school wooden?
It is wood. It is, and it's.
I'm just trying to say some courtrooms are so old. They had literally in Williamsburg where I went to college. They have wrought wooden railings separating the jury and the peers from the judge and the. Describe it if you can.
Yeah, because it is a little bit different.
All the Americans hear is courtroom stories, and they see
the same
a certain narrative, but that's not Antigua's justice system. And that's why I think if you could give us a few more painted pictures, because
let me do that. And that's actually,
hello, you just told me you wrote a book. Derrick.
It's important.
I now know you're a good writer.
Well, I didn't plan to write a book. I'll tell you about that at the end. But let me just paint this picture.
Is it wooden?
Yeah, it's in three. When you walk into the courtroom, there's three sections: left, middle, and right sides to it. We go in the right
left,
side.
middle, and right.
Yep. And so we go in the right side, and then once all the non-participants, I'll just say visitors, whatever, you're at a point. And by the way, they follow UK law, so because they used to be colonized by the UK.
Well, they wear a wig, the puffed white wig thing.
The judge did not wear a wig, but that's about the only thing. It's very UK-ish from that perspective.
I got you.
Yeah, so it was different.
And the black and white robe with the thing on the collar and all of it.
Yep, all of that. So
that really helped. our listeners.
So let me just put. So if you look in,
put a picture in there.
Straight back is where the judge sits.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking
up on a pulpit, like kind of.
Yeah, he's
riser.
lifted up for sure. He's lifted up. To his to his right. So if you're looking from the back to the left is where the jury sits.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then
on the side.
Yes, on that side, across from the jury, like straight across. So on the opposite side is where the stand is. It's not right beside the judge like we see here. It's actually on the other side.
Oh, gotcha.
And then you have a table that's the prosecutor across right from the judge, and then the table behind them. So they're not like, it's not like in the U.S. where you got one on the left and right. The table behind them is for the defense. And this is what's even most weird. Behind that table, there's a platform. It's maybe one step up, and there's wooden rails around it, and you enter, and the guy on trial sits in that right in the middle of the thing. So that's your picture, right? If that helps,
that's very helpful.
And here's really
different than like anything our Americans can imagine right now.
It's a little scary because in this way, I'm sitting on the front row, in between my daughters Taylor and Caitlin, and Jill's on the other side of Caitlin, and I'm literally 15 feet from the guy.
Oh no!
And yes, there were police there, but there were times they weren't. And anyway, so that was how it was set up. And here's what I wanted to tell you. On our side, we're there. My other daughter Emily's there. A friend of ours who became a friend because, and you may know her, Annie Clark, who started EROC. She went with us. She really supported Caitlin as a non-family person. It was great, and she's knowledgeable, so she was great. 2 UK police officers that worked with me on this the entire 4 years, they were there, and they had to do it really for their job to decide what to do. It was easy once he got convicted what to do. They were there. There was a lady from the embassy that came. I had never met till she showed up, and then Sarah Abraham came for part of it, which was great to meet her because she's the one that negotiated the whole deal. On the other side, where the defense was sitting, there was nobody. Now, I know this because it was talked about by the judge. His mother and girlfriend came to visit him the week before the trial, but they weren't there for the trial. And all I can say, and I don't know anything, is that they wanted to see him, but he didn't want them in that trial. He didn't want them to hear, because the story he told them and the truth are two different things. But anyway, that's how it went, and that's what it was like. And it was tense. I wanted to say this about Caitlin up there on the stand. When we took a break after she testified, and we're walking out, and Sergeant Linton from the UK police, who is a friend of mine to this day, stopped me walking back to leave and said, I might have used his phrase. He's the one. He said, Caitlin was incredible on the stand. And he says, I've sat through hundreds of these things, because he's about to retire actually next year. So he's done it a long time. But, her composure and her just straightforwardness and answers, she kept it together. So Caitlin, there's 3 reasons we won that trial. Caitlin was great on the stand, but we had 2 critical pieces of evidence. One was all the text messaging. We had all these text messages, and where she said no sex, he agrees, and that was multiple times. But he lied in those messages about drinking and stuff. He even contradicted it in court. So he didn't address any of the complicated things when he told her over and over, nothing happened. Then literally, Katie, as he's getting on his plane to go back to the UK, he tells her they had sex. That's how that happened. Whoa, and wow. He's thinking he's home free now. He picked the wrong victim with the wrong family, because he thought he was done. As soon as he landed, he blocked her. And that's how kind of that all came together. It was, anyway.
Wow.
So
no, not anyway. That was amazing. No,
just see where, I will just say this. I can do this very quick. He did appeal, lost. There's 3 appellate judges. They all ruled. All of the appeal, there was 7, I believe 7 issues they raised. They were all about the judge. And let me tell you, that judge could be in a movie. I mean, he actually did a lot of the trials in the Rwanda killings. He's from Scotland. So, he's been all over the world. I don't know how we got him. He lives there now and does this, but he was fabulous. And then after the appeals, there's a thing called the Privy Council, which I'd never heard of. So that Privy Council is in the UK, but they serve what our Supreme Court would serve to us here. So after appellate, they can take it there, which they did. And they actually read all the appellate stuff, and they wouldn't even take the case because they said, no, we've read the appellate. There's nothing for us to do with this. And that happened May 18th of 2022, which was about 10 days short of 7 years. Now, if I can just say, I wrote that book. Originally, Caitlin and I were going to write a book together. We had the concept of her from a victim's perspective and me from the advocate and the father, because I thought not many fathers talk about this or certainly don't write about it. I think it'll be unique. And so she was all in until December of 2019 when I said, I think we need to get started on it. Keep in mind, I had notes, meticulous notes from everything I did from my first call to the UK until it was over. So I just had to write the story around the facts that I had. But Caitlin couldn't do it. She just couldn't do the writing, but she encouraged me to continue to do it. So the month of February in 2020, I wrote the book. I literally wrote, I would say 85% of it in that month. But I wanted to wait until the appeals and any of that stuff was done because I wanted the whole story to be complete. And so last June 23, I self-published because I really just wanted to get it done, and I don't know that process, and it was easy, and so I took the easy way out. But it's called Antigua Justice, A Father's Fight. It is on Amazon, just saying for anybody. There's so much to this story, and something I want to say because you pointed this out at the beginning. If you want to know how I felt, if you want to know the thoughts that were going through my mind, I put it all in there. And people, it is a difference maker because and by the way, my wife, Jill, and Taylor, my middle daughter, both read and edited the book and asked me to remove some of the things I put in there, and I wouldn't do it. And it was just because, and they're like, you sure you want this comment in there that you put? And I'm like, look, people need to understand what this does to you. I wanted people to feel what I was going through. So I left it all in there. It's all there. I got
it,
yeah,
Derrick.
Yeah.
We can refer people to it if it's on Amazon for sure.
Yeah.
We've been going a while, and I know our listeners have so benefited from.
It's a long story.
Everything. Yeah, some incredible story. And I just want to honor you and the journey you've had, and also your daughter and your wife and your other 2 daughters. My goodness. And thank you for fighting so hard and so fiercely and so clearly for victims. Especially, it was your daughter, but you're helping so many more.
Yeah. If I can just say one last thing. So once I left my job, and I felt this pull. I was actually supporting another father and another victim just because people had connected them to me, which I'm happy to do it. And by the way, people have reached out. So now there's other people in the world that just to give them, I've been through it. I've been through this stuff, not as the victim, but the secondary victim and a family member. But I understand. And so, I tell people all the time that I've just met, they tell me, I give them my number. If you want to call me and talk, let's talk. I talked to a lady in Australia last week. But everything I'm doing now, and I'll just say this, when I wrote this book, I did it for 3 reasons. One was it's a very compelling story. It could be a movie story. I've had a lot of people tell me you should call Netflix, but anyway, the second reason was, so it's compelling. It's an interesting story. I wanted to do it from a father's perspective, as I mentioned earlier, because there's a lot of people that have written about their unfortunate assaults, but I could never think of one I remembered from the father. And I often wondered, having three daughters, when something would be on the news, I'm just thinking, gosh, what is that dad thinking? And so, if anybody's then that was part of it, because it was cathartic, by the way, to get it out. And the last thing was, I had a feeling then that I was going to get out of my career and just go and help people in this space. I wasn't really sure. There's no playbook for it. But at the end of last year, I left, and I thought having told my story and having it in a book that I could reference would help me, give me a little bit of a platform to talk about. And so since then, I've done some webinars. I've spoke.
Yeah, and no, it's fine, Derrick. We'll put all that in the show notes. I'm just worried about time.
That's fine. I know.
Sorry, I think we've got it all. Don't worry. We'll put anything else you want to reference in show notes.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for having me, by the way. I know it's a long story. It's a very complicated story.
No, it's a great story, and it's an important story that our listeners are definitely going to benefit from hearing. So thank you, Derrick, for joining us. And I think you already shared a couple last wrap-ups, but, for our listeners, I go back to many facets of what Derrick shared, whether you find some interest in how he and his whole family responded, and then the courage. Like I love the part where I'm angry and then I just sat back and I'm like, let's research this more, let's figure it out. And then you were fortunate to have so many kind, good people who continued that journey with you. And I also like thinking about how I kind of envisioned Caitlin on the stand and doing her own heroic journey herself, since now she did find some avenue of justice, thanks in many large parts to your own convictions, Derrick, as her father. So my goodness. All right, my amazing listeners, followers, fans, members of Take Back the Night, please know, my goodness, justice is possible, and that is exactly why we started the legal support hotline. We, RAINN has long had a counseling support hotline, and we're all about, finding not vindication, but it's really just saying, like, this was wrong and it needs to be acknowledged publicly and personally as wrong. Like, a personal statement becomes a public statement when we do it in a court of law, whether that be a civil place, a criminal place, an international court of law like Derrick just described, or even a campus or school court. An employer has justice. So justice is accountability, and it changes and moves the dial on standards. So that becomes your part of your journey. When you say, I'm healed, ready to make a statement and stand strong, put my arms straight up in the air and swear on whatever they have me swearing on in a court of law and say, yep, this is the truth. And I stand publicly ready to state it. And so pridefully, we do that when we're ready to as survivors, and that changes the whole movement. Again, it's watershed. And today, Derrick gave us an international case. So please know that wherever you are listening to the podcast, whatever country, whatever domicile you have, whatever cultural background, we are absolutely ready to say, Take Back the Night is the oldest, largest movement to end sexual violence in the world since the 60s. We stand with survivors. So please join us. Please become members, fans, come to events. We have not had one in Antigua. I just went to South Korea for our listeners' sake, and we're about to have our first South Korean event this year for 2025. So let's keep going. Justice should be international, and global justice means survivors have a voice everywhere. So thank you so much, Derrick, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care and keep being strong, survivors. The Shatter the Silence Justice Hotline is right there on our website. There's a form you can fill out. And 567 Shatter is the number to call if you're ready to seek out your legal options. Thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for joining another episode of the Dear Katie podcast. I hope very much you found today's episode helpful, empowering, and a way to take another step in that long journey toward healing and supporting those we care about, learning about sexual violence prevention, and also survivor support. For those of you who don't know, again, the Take Back the Night website has tons of great resources, books, self-care options, cool merch. If you're feeling like you need a wearable, we have great t-shirts. Of course, we would love it if you follow along on our free newsletter with news and events going on around the country and even around the globe. And finally, don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You'll find our entire community popping up here and there, and recaps of our podcast episodes as well. So together we shatter the silence, and together we end the violence. Take care.